write this about Whitney's longtime friend. I know there's been a lot of speculation over the years about the friendship between Nippy and Robin and whether it was more than that. Do you believe that Whitney and Robin were in a gay relationship?
I don't really know. I thought, I didn't particularly like her.
What didn't you like?
She just spoke too much, disrespectful sometimes. Like she had something over Nippy, like that. And I didn't like that at all. She was all right. She turned out to be all right, I guess, with that, because that was her friend.
You say, I knew I didn't want Robin around my daughter, and I told Nippy that. There wasn't much I could do, though. Nippy liked Robin. She was past the age when I could forbid her from seeing someone. Kids have a mind of their own when they get older. They want to experiment with all kinds of things. And I don't know if it was more than that.
That was it.
And that was it. But you do say that you do know that they cared deeply for each other.
I think so. They were very good friends.
Would it have bothered you if your daughter, Whitney, was gay?
Absolutely.
It would have bothered you?
Yeah.
You would not have liked that?
Not at all.
Not at all. You wouldn't have condoned it or?
No.
No. So were you happy when Bobby Brown came into the picture?
No.
You weren't happy about that?
Mm-mm.
Did you think he was good for her?
No.
Did you tell her that?
Yes.
She obviously didn't listen.
Yeah, well, no, she didn't listen. I didn't bother with that, and said, well, your choice, At that time, she was old enough to do what she wanted to. What could I do?
That's right. On page 128, you write about the first time you hear anything about Whitney using drugs. You say, one afternoon in the late 1980s, Robin came to visit me. She told me that Nippy was using drugs, which was news to me. What was that conversation? Did she say what kinds of drugs they were using?
Cocaine, I guess. I think it was, yeah. She was telling on Nippy, actually, I guess, and I said, well, I went to her.
You went to Nippy? After the visit from Robin?
I sure did. But I went to her and I said, what are you doing with yourself? We had a little conversation about it. I said, you must stop that. She says, I promise you, Mommy, I'm going to. But of course,
Now, I know what often happens is people go back and they look back and they say, oh, yes, of course, how come I didn't see that? Have you done that with yourself? Like, why didn't I see?
Well, I saw her one time really high. I wanted to kill her. I really did, but I held myself back and I told her. She said, Mommy. And she was so sad and pitiful,
You went to her house, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she opened the door.
She didn't know I was coming.
And she didn't know you were coming.
She was high. I wanted to hurt her. I really did, because it hurt me so bad.
What's going on, my people? This is your host, Blanche, eating with Black Trending News, and this is episode 29 tonight. We're going to be talking about Whitney Houston, who she was very briefly, because many people already know who she is. What was known to be her closest friend, Robin Crawford. And this is a woman who spent 20 years by Whitney Houston's side, working closely with her, having positions in her career, such as creative director and so forth. We're also going to get into what I think is really important, is that Whitney Houston was, based on this woman's story and a documentary that came out in 2017, Whitney Houston was pretty much living in the closet and having a relationship with a woman that people who close to her knew about, but the general public, like her fans and so forth, more than likely weren't aware, because many people are still shocked and still, enthused in a way about this news, because the woman Robin Crawford is coming out with a book, and she is doing interviews and sharing the good news. So unfortunately, Whitney Houston is not here to speak on her behalf, and a lot of people are having a problem with that. and going, well, why are you coming out now? So let's get into it. We're going to play some clips and really just, I guess, bask in all of this. A lot of people are surprised to hear it because Whitney Houston grew up in the church, but I personally don't see why, because sexuality has nothing to do with religion. Religion does not determine somebody's sexuality. It just doesn't. And you can be, attracted to the same sex no matter what religion you're in. It has nothing to do with God, it has nothing to do with beliefs or the Bible. It's just the Bible has rules about it, but not everybody, abides by those rules, but they still follow their Christian beliefs. So I really believe that Whitney Houston, in her mind, was trying to do the right thing by God and by her mother and by her Christian roots, by ending the relationship with Robin, by giving her a Bible and saying our physical relationship is not godly. In other words, it's not right to continue doing this. So let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about their past. Just some quick bullet points here. Whitney, according to Daily Mail UK, Whitney Houston's friends have revealed that she was in a lesbian relationship. Her stylist and security both agree that she was bisexual, and with her assistant, Robin. Robin Crawford met Whitney when she was 16 and worked with her until the year 2000. In the documentary In Whitney, Can I Be Me?, her closest friends explain the complicated relationship. The eye-opening documentary came out in 2017, and I believe it was on BBC Two. So definitely check that out. I believe it's on sale on YouTube for $9.99. I think I saw that. In the documentary, her former bodyguard David Roberts even said that Robin and Brown would have physical fights over their shared love over the singer. And the intensity of their relationship even led to her exile from Whitney's inner circle. So, in other words, Bobby Brown and Robin Crawford used to get into it. So basically what it sounds like is that they were having an open marriage, but it wasn't a healthy open marriage, because I don't even think, based on the media portrayal of Bobby Brown and Whitney Houston's marriage, that was very toxic. So just imagine having a third person in it and having that third person be a woman. Yeah, that turns up the fire and burns everything up, doesn't it? Speaking exclusively to Mail Online, documentary maker Nick Broomfield credits Robin for keeping Whitney on the rails, but believes her fans are too obsessed with the intimate details of their relationship. So when they say on the rails, what they're saying is that Whitney Houston had, and those around her, it wasn't just Whitney, right? Whitney and those around her, her closest people in her circle, they did drugs. And that was unfortunate that she couldn't get clean, or maybe she did get clean but couldn't stay clean and relapsed a lot throughout her career. But they're saying that Robin kept her on track with like her appointments, her interviews, because their relationship was so close. They're saying that Whitney Houston found a sacred space in her and trusted her, and they even shared a bed together in a home together. It says here they shared a house together. They often shared the same bed. I think the most important thing is that it was the most productive, supportive, and creative relationship that she had for probably 15 years. In the movie, Ellen states her belief that Whitney was bisexual, having feelings for both Robin and her husband, Bobby Brown. Again, there's a lot of people who are bisexual. This doesn't shock me that Whitney Houston is bisexual. What shocks me is that she had to live with that secret for so long. That's what shocks me, is that she couldn't really, come out. And this is, again, a repeated offense that happens throughout the music industry. And a lot of artists go through this, especially men. I just did a episode on Ricky Martin, and there's a lot of it. There's some people who have one foot in the door, one foot out, peeking out, going back in, having fun, going back, being, not really revealing to the public, but having fun with it, and getting a lot of media attention for just doing that. So sexuality is a big deal. I just, wish that there was, coming out is not as trendy, wasn't as trendy as it is now. Coming out is trendy now. Everybody loves you when you come out. But I think at the time in the 90s, that was very much frowned upon in the Black community, and especially by her mom, who was a big deal to her. And her music career, she was known as a gospel singer as well as a pop singer and an R&B singer. Gospel was a big part of her sales. So imagine Whitney Houston coming out and saying, I'm a lesbian or I'm bisexual. Well, there goes a lot of money. And that was probably a lot of pressure on her, and she probably didn't want to deal with that. So she, did drugs to probably cope with those feelings and get through life with a smile on her face and always be ready for the camera. Her former bodyguard, David Roberts, even said that Robin and Brown would have physical fights over their shared love of the singer. Bobby Brown and Robin Crawford together were the equivalent of fire and water, patrol and a short fuse. They hated each other. Simple. They would battle for her affections, and they would battle for her attention, mainly to identify with the hate they had for each other, he said. There were numerous fights between Robin and Bobby Brown. Serious fights. Bobby and Robin had some physical altercations, and I think there were times when he wasn't always the winner, but then Whitney would come in between them, and she would pour the oil in the troubled waters. Nick said Bobby Brown loved Whitney enough to say if Robin Crawford had been around, he believed Whitney would still be alive. I think she did an amazing job of keeping her on the rails, keeping her more or less on time for interviews and that kind of thing. Certainly the people closest to Whitney, like Bobby Brown and Patty Howard, all feel that Robin got driven out. If she stayed around, Whitney would probably be around too. Robin worked as Whitney's assistant from 1979 and eventually earned the position of creative director before quitting in 2000. Whitney's family and friends believe Robin was pushed out by her mother, Cissy Houston, who disapproved heavily of their romance or just their relationship, period. Cissy Houston has been very vocal about how she feels about Robin. So, and her, Whitney Houston's drug use. So, Robin declined to be a part of the film. As Nick says, she moved on with her life since parting ways with Whitney and is now married with children. So this is back in 2017. And now I guess Robin, she says, quote, she felt compelled to share her story. So, it's always 50-50. Is this real? Is this for money? Either way, people are going to read it. Her fans are going to want to know. Shit, even I want to kind of know a little bit. And, what is it that people are fixated on when finding out a celebrity's sexuality? Like, why people get so excited about it? I think it's the mystery, of course, behind it. And just knowing that somebody who they love and look up to is just a regular person. And it's like, wow, okay, you're just a regular ass person. You get down like that. Or you have feelings like me. They connect with common things. So I think that, there's a lot of people who are her fans that just want to know this and are going to feel even more bigger connection with her. And who knows why Robin is doing this now? Like, who knows, right? None of us are really going to ever know. We could either choose to support it or we could choose to not support it. I'm going to be honest with you. She doesn't seem like a conniving individual, but that doesn't mean she's not. In an interview that I'm going to play in a moment, her answers were just so vague, and she even repeated herself. So, she doesn't get much into detail, probably to hold it for the book, but I felt like she could have shared a little bit more in the interview, because that on its own looks very suspect. When you don't talk at all, or you just kind of say like a few words, and people are kind of going to give you the side eye, because it's like, well, all right, I know you got a book coming out, but damn, spill a little tea so we can understand that this is real. Like, and I think it's real. I think a lot of it's real. The fact that her mom has an issue with this woman, that she's been around for such a long time, and that people who are like her bodyguard are saying this is what it was, it kind of, I don't find it hard to believe. I don't think it's crazy that Whitney Houston was in love with a woman at a very young age at camp. They fell in love at camp, and I don't think that's crazy. I went to camp growing up. I met a boy that I swear up and down I loved him, but I was very young, and my mom was like, not today, and not ever. You're still too young. So people go to camp and fall in love. This is not an unusual thing. It happens. There's no parents there. You're by yourself, a lot of the times, and you find times to be by yourself, and things like that may flourish. So that's doesn't seem anything out of the blue or crazy. Whitney's relationship with Robin caused even more tension between the singer and Bobby Brown, who was 6 years younger than the singer and is often the one blamed for her downfall. The film reveals that it was actually Whitney's brothers who introduced her to drugs when they grew up in the tough streets in Newark, New Jersey. Everybody's so caught up on who introduced Whitney to drugs. It's like Whitney's her own individual. She was doing drugs. Like, I mean, you can introduce drugs to somebody, but you cannot take responsibility if they decide to take drugs for the rest of their life. You cannot wear that for the rest of your life. It doesn't make any sense. So I really don't like when people are constantly blaming Bobby or blaming this person for Whitney's actions. She's responsible for her own actions. Anybody could have introduced her to drugs. It's a matter of whether she's going to decide to keep using it or not. Like, we can't keep blaming people for her drug usage. Like, I think people need to stop doing that. Nick said, I'd always been fed the line that Bobby Brown had introduced her to drugs, so it was kind of a revelation that it was more the brothers from Newark. The fact that she grew up in Newark wasn't something that was ever made anything of any way. In a way, I think everybody was surprised that she grew up in the hood, although it makes complete sense. I think Clive Davis did such a brilliant job, so it kind of made sense that Bobby Brown wasn't the villain that he was portrayed. It's amazing how effective that job that Clive Davis did was. He sold it and it worked. She was the darling of white American teenage girls. So, the music industry, the music industry. I feel like when it comes to black women and black singers, they always have to be easily digested by white people. Like, they can't be too black. God forbid they're too black, and white people they cannot digest it easily, or they cannot understand it, or it's too intense for them. God forbid. So it's just like, this type of language is just it gets under my skin, because it's like, Whitney was talented, so what does it matter what color she was or how black she was, or she needed to be more like this? When they teamed her up with Kevin Costner in The Bodyguard, I think when I was younger, I never thought, my mindset wasn't, oh, they're trying to make her digestible for the white community. I never thought like that, because I was young, and I just didn't have that perspective in life. But now, looking back, I'm like, well, it's possible that they're like, look how digestible she is. She's so digestible to you that she can be with a white man. See, she's just like you. Now buy her records. So, whatever. Moving on. It's not about that, but you get what I'm saying. Now, there was, again, a lot of information in this document that reveals that they were very violent, and even Whitney and her mom were very violent people. It says both the filmmaker and those he interviewed agree that the group surrounding the singer, including Bobby, Robin, the family, and even Whitney herself, were violent. one of the things that surprised me is that he never came out in his defense. He pretty much was blamed for everything. Then there was the whole domestic violence thing too, and I think everybody in that group was pretty violent with each other. I think Sissy Houston was violent with Whitney. There was a lot of fighting that went on, physical fighting. I think he was unfairly blamed for a lot of things. I don't think he was by any means an angel, but I think he genuinely loved her and they had a dysfunctional relationship. I think they were undysfunctional in that they wanted to experience everything together and they went down this crazy ride together. I think that's what they could blame him for, and they were unable to support each other off addiction, so they were not good for each other. I don't think he was a bad person. I think he was probably a good father and he cared, and he was a philanderer. And how many guys are like that? I think he just couldn't keep it in his pants and caused her a lot of pain in that way. That's a mouthful. But it's violence in family, domestic violence is a very popular thing that happens. These things are not unusual. They're not good, but they're not unusual. They're not hard to believe. Families fight, parents beat their kids. Some people may look at it as violence. Some people may look at it as she's whooping her ass, she's not behaving herself. You're my child, I'm gonna whoop your ass. You're not behaving. Some people look at that as violence. All about perspective. But I could see it, people who are on drugs and that kind of toxicity going on. I could see it, right? So moving along here. Let me go ahead and play that interview that Robin Crawford did with NBC.
They were best friends, roommates as well, and rumors swirled for decades about whether they were also secretly lovers. Well, now, Robin Crawford is finally answering everything in a new memoir.
I watched her rise to the top of her game, and I felt compelled to share who that woman was behind all the fame.
Robin Crawford was by Whitney's side every step of the way as rumors about them swirled. Everyone knows the tragic story of Whitney Houston, the superstar. But this is the story that no one else knows except you. Why share that story now?
I never envisioned speaking publicly about my life. And then I asked myself the question, what would Whitney want? Would she understand, the time is now?
For the very first time, Crawford is now opening up publicly about their relationship in her new book, A Song for You.
We were intimate on many levels. And all I can say was that it was very deep and we were very connected.
They first met when Whitney was just shy of 17, Crawford says. Soon, they were inseparable. When did this friendship, this partnership, when did it turn into something more?
Our friendship was a deep friendship. In the early part of that friendship, it was physical.
Who knew about the romantic aspect of your relationship with her?
I would say no one. It was ours.
Crawford says their physical intimacy stopped before Houston became a star.
She said, I don't believe we should be physical anymore. The music business was a world that we were learning, and we didn't want anything to interfere with where she was going.
Were you sad? Were you angry? Were you disappointed?
I just felt that I wouldn't be losing much. I still loved her the same, and she loved me, and that was good enough.
They remained best friends and housemates for years, Crawford says, and she became Houston's closest confidant and point person. A lot of folks will see this and they'll probably ask, how do I know she's not making all this up?
I can't even get into that. I mean, some people may feel that way. Hopefully They won't.
What's the family say about that?
Not much. The family has not responded to our request for comment.
So after watching this interview, I feel like perhaps Robin did not partake in the documentary because she maybe had something else going on, her own project, right? She could have been working on that book. It was just 2 years ago, right? People usually sometimes people take a few years to work on a book. So I think that Robin was working on this book and was like, you know what, I'm not going to do the documentary because I don't want to give anything away and I got something up my sleeve. So I don't necessarily think, now that she's coming out with this book, I don't necessarily think that, you know, she just didn't want to do the documentary. I think she had something else going on. I tell you, it's just, you know, it just never shocks me how people can make money off of dead people. Like, they're not here anymore and people are still raking up the bucks. So she also goes into, you know, speaking for Whitney, sort of speaking for Whitney. What would Whitney want? Would she say that the time is now? Like, what, you know, that's kind of a what's the word? Cryptic thing to say, you know, like, in other words, I feel like she's saying, like, Whitney is speaking to her, saying the time is now. In other words, let's come out the closet in 2019 and tell the world that we were lovers. Is this, you know, for somebody who's moved on and has a family and a wife, she is really, I wonder how a wife feels about her talking about her love with Whitney in a book. But, you know, there's going to be a lot of money and media and interviews involved in this. It's already really big. It's already plastering everything. So, and again, this is the decade where people are coming out and it's acceptable and it's actually embraced. So, how genius was that, huh? I noticed in the interview she is calling it a friendship, but she's saying that they're very intimate. So intimacy is lovemaking. It's to me that's sexual, without saying it. And I think she's trying to keep it very respectful because Whitney is no longer with us. I think she's trying to hold a very heavy respect and be very careful with her words. So she's not kind of slandering Whitney's, you know, reputation, because she knows that Whitney is not just a pop and R&B artist, but she's a Christian artist. And her mom, she probably has to keep respect for her family. According to NBC, Whitney's family did not respond to their questions. So they obviously probably don't want anything to do with it. And they're probably very unhappy about it. But she's still coming out anyway, huh? She also claims that nobody knew about their relationship romantically. So there was romance in the relationship. So that's pretty much an admission that there was romance in the relationship and no one knew about it. So, I mean, I don't think that no one knew about it. Like, I just read the quotes from the documentary. She's claiming that no one knew, but the bodyguards are claiming, you know, her wardrobe stylist is claiming to know these things. You can't hide that for long. You know, people closest to you are going to notice things. You can't hide stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm not saying what she's saying isn't true. I don't know what she's saying is true or not. But I think it's pretty hard to hide a love affair for 20 years. Well, she is right about one thing. People are going to say this is a load of bullshit. And depending on how strongly they feel about it, they may go to lengths to try to, you know, debunk what she's saying or maybe go against her. You know how the internet is and how people can get. So I wish her the best of luck. And that's it. I really don't have an opinion. I'm just sharing the story. I don't, you know, I'm still a huge Whitney. Nothing is going to make me not be a Whitney Houston fan. I love Whitney Houston's music. Never met her in my life. And I think everybody loves Whitney Houston. Everybody probably doesn't. But in my head and in my heart, everybody loves Whitney Houston. She is an American sweetheart, even if she had problems like, you know, drugs and things like that. This is life. She's not perfect. She's a human being. I love her music. I love her as a musician. I don't know her personally, so I cannot sit here and say, oh, she's a this, she's a that. I saw something really mean. Like I saw like a Halloween meme. There was a kid dressed up as Whitney Houston when she was, when she was high. It was so disgusting. People disrespect her all the time. And when you're a real fan, none of that can change how you feel about a musician in your heart. So let me know what you think in the comments. Definitely like and share this video. Subscribe to my channel. I will be posting more this weekend. Have a beautiful night. Thank you for listening.